think it's about starting time. Hello, everybody. This is the RESO Data Dictionary Workgroup. So this will be, for those of you who are new, a chance for you to have a taste of how the workgroup works. There's going to be, I'm going to start off with our usual antitrust policy. Then I'll go into some explanations on how you can interact with the workgroup. And then we'll go into actually doing workgroup work. So, you get to kind of see how it happens. Normally it's online via Zoom. Hopefully you'll find it not intimidating, something that's easy to join in and participate with. Because really at this point, it's all about getting the input from everybody to continue to further the standard, especially if you're not an MLS. We've had a lot of MLS input for a lot of years. But getting that participation of anything else, if you produce data, we want to help you with that. If it's, and you just keep in mind, it's the data that you want to share in some controlled situation. The RESO does not force you to share any data that you don't want to. But if it's data that you do let out a door, an API, as an example in Europe, that there's cases where they're not using the particular API. The dictionary is a separate layer that can work on its own. So just make sure you dive in and start talking to us. We'd be happy to work with you on that. Let's go ahead and move into, I guess this is the slide button. There we go. All right, RESO strives to increase competition in the marketplace and will not be a forum for anti-competitive conduct. The RESO antitrust policy governs the activities of RESO and its members, including this meeting. A link to the policy was emailed to you at the meeting agenda. Please consult RESO's counsel if you have any questions about the policy. I'm Rob. There's my information. You can get a hold of me anytime, ask any kind of questions you have with regards to the dictionary, how to interact, if you've got any questions, that's things that are in there, ideas that you want added into there, just give me a holler. Also, if you need guitar work done, I'm your guy. And then Kevin Tranby has been helping out. I hosted a meeting the other month. He's also available, and you have his information there. Give you a second to take that down. All right, and so we got quite the agenda. Depending on your interaction level, we might get out early, but I'm still going to push you to interact. Definitely, this is all about having a conversation, not just sitting around listening. This is one of those where if you don't participate, then you're going to sort of get dictated to, and you really don't want that. You want to be part of the conversation. You want to be part of the decisions so that how you do things flourishes. Rather than, one of the things that are dangerous about standards is they can stifle innovation. And one way they stifle innovation is if you're not coming forward with what you need to support what you're innovating on. So make sure you dive in. Let's see here. So I'm not going to run through all the items in there. I'm just going to kind of go into how to work with the dictionary. So kind of the format, I think you've seen a little bit of that. Sam had a slide. We tackle problems in different ways, and I'll be running back over this a little bit later as I kind of describe how the work group is evolving. But basically, individual idea. You can send it into dd@reso.org. It's a great way to get started. You can actually go to RESO at @Larson. I think I always say that wrong. And you can go straight to the workgroup board and post yourself. There's no rules there. Just don't, treat it like social and start an argument or anything. But definitely, if you have an idea, go ahead and put it in there. Now, if you want some assistance baking it, you can ping that address. You can ping me. You can talk to Jason. And you can talk to Kevin, and we'll help you put that together in a way that we think is going to best represent your idea, get it conveyed across, and have the best chance of getting a vote. So you'll find if you engage me, I'll play a little bit of devil's advocate with you. I'll say, yeah, but what if? because I'm trying to predict challenges that might come up and see if we can't get your idea in the best light and in the best position to succeed, to move forward. I'll also talk to you about how your idea aligns with the existing dictionary. I might make some suggestions to alter it a little bit to follow convention and how the standards work. So it definitely is a dialogue. It's not just a simple, here's what it is. There's no dictation. It's all about conversation when it comes to bringing your ideas into the dictionary. But again, if you want to go straight to the dictionary workgroup board and just post, knock yourself out. Not a problem. We want everybody to feel comfortable with whatever method they want. Okay, when you're getting ready to engage with the dictionary, the Wiki, right? It's your one-stop shop where you can go look things up. The search is working pretty good these days. If a few years ago you would search for key terms, have trouble finding things, try again, it works well. But I also recommend you can go there and pull down a spreadsheet. So for those of you who were a recovering accountant like myself, spreadsheets are fantastic. You got the whole dictionary in a spreadsheet format. If you're going to sit down and map to the dictionary, that's a great thing you can grab. But we've also got other formats there. And if you need any other assistance as how to get yourself started in doing that job of mapping yourself up to the dictionary, just give a holler. There's a lot of people in the community that'd be happy to help you out. All right, so with regards to engaging, any questions? Anybody have any kind of concerns? You ever run into any challenges? Any successes? This is where I pause to get interaction, and I'll be doing more and more of it progressively as we go through the session here. Yes? I apologize if I'm squinting. We got some pretty fierce lights up there.
Giselle Abadi from Realty Now. I participated in a few of the workgroup data dictionary meetings. And basically, of course, I had some ideas for international market, but I thought every time that it's out of scope, maybe, to discuss them. So there are certain fields or requirements, definitely, when we're talking about international expansion that we have to take into consideration and fast enough. So I want to know if they're relevant or not.
Well, we've got no restrictions on what we can talk about. If you start talking about how OData works, you're going to get redirected over to transport. But one thing I do is I run things pretty tight. The agenda has to be posted out to the workgroup board. It tends to be for at least a week, and usually try to have much longer. Most of the things that we have here have been posted for quite some time. So the best place to start, if you're not sure about how to position or how to get whatever you want covered in there, is go ahead and ping DD at RESO. You'll get Jason and Kevin and I all at one fell swoop, and we'll sit down and talk about it, and we'll get that post up. And then you'll be part of the proper agenda, and staff and myself will be all ready to advocate for what it is that you want to bring and help convey those ideas to the group.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions about engaging? How about from a standpoint of evaluating your metadata against the dictionary? This notion of native, I can't see if anybody's walking, okay. This notion of native, I think it's an important concept if you're going to get into mapping out your data. Well, what exactly are you going to map, right? Because you'll see in some of the numbers I'm going to pull up, you've got situations where you've got 4 different vendors of a API, and you've got hundreds of MLSs being represented in that 4, right? So that's where you're getting certified. So if you're going to map there, it's probably already done, and you can talk to them and your vendor and see what mapping they have. If you want to evaluate your actual MLS system or whatever the data-producing product might be, that starts to get into the concept of native, which is the idea of I'm going to make things look consistent throughout. So when I go into my input form, I see the terminology that's in the dictionary. And then when I go out to like that IDX website out there, I see the same conventions, the same terms, the same information being displayed. That's the idea of native. The reason why RESO doesn't test it is, one, RESO doesn't really have a reach into that. Two, it's kind of none of their business. But it is a very positive thing that you can do, so that when you have someone who comes in and they fill out a field and the field's got this name, and then they go out onto a website and it's called something completely different, it creates a disconnect. And so by being more native, because it's not an absolute, right? The dictionary is not meant to be an absolute. But by being more native, you just create a consistency for people in that. Now, I think I heard earlier that how much dictionary is like a successful implementation. I'd say right now about 70% of your fields probably align with the dictionary in some way. If you include your enumerations as well, it's probably in that ballpark. Now, you might find 60, you might find 80, but I think your average MLS is going to be in that ballpark. If you're looking at newer standards like showing, maybe you'll find it a little bit broader. The dictionary started off with a much smaller commonality. But then as things evolve, you get more and more commonality. And we're going to be discussing today how we can move that along as well. All right, any other questions on interacting with the dictionary? And again, give us a holler. We're happy to talk to you. Want to make sure you're comfortable. If you want to do it anonymously, I suppose we could do that. I mean, whatever it takes to get the ideas in the door, we're happy to facilitate. All right. Big changes. For those of you who've been at the meetings, you remember when 2.0 was 1.8, right? And then there was 1.9, which became 2.1, and now 2.1 is folding into 2.0. If that isn't confusing enough, here's a simple answer. Everything that we've done for the past couple of years is 2.0. And as of October 31st, closed. We're done. So we're actually, how I mentioned, I like to have things posted for at least a week. We've got something in here that is pretty close to that border, but the idea of getting into the dictionary is something we want to entertain, because when we close it, then you're roughly looking at about a year for the next version. So when it comes to the canter of versions, because we start off very slow, then we sped up where we were doing a version like every 6 months, and we were told, hey, slow down. And then now it's been a while, because we've been really changing the underlying mechanics of how certification and everything works, that we're going to be going back to this canter. And the intention right now is once a year, we will close off most likely in the fall like this, go through a comment period, and then in the spring, ratify. And then after that, you got the regular 1 year cycle of things falling off. Depending on what it is, you might have a longer period. Always be sure to check in when you're looking at your schedules and timelines to make your updates and the changes you need to make to be compliant. So with respect to where we're at, 2.0, 2.1 might not even happen. We might be jumping straight to 3, but it's just numbers. At the end of the day, you can go in and see what these differences are. I've got a little summary for you, but you want to make sure you're going in and not only taking a look at the differences, but pulling down the 2.0 spreadsheet if you do mapping, and evaluating what your changes are to the nth degree, because you don't want to be surprised by these when you go to certification. It's better to be way ahead of that. So any questions on how to get going on that? This information is all available today. All right, if you have any questions, dd@reso.org, and we'll help you get started. Okay, for me, this is huge. I've known that there's a certain amount of stuff that we thought was a great idea and nobody's using it. And I know there was a lot of stuff out there that we never thought of as a work group to put into the dictionary. And when RESO started and Josh started building this stuff and we were talking about the possibilities, it was like, wow, we're going to be able to supercharge bringing things to the table. We're going to be able to very quickly identify all sorts of great stuff. And then there's all these other benefits that come out of the analytics other than interest. I'm not even going to talk about what's interesting about it. I'm just going to talk about the utility. So I was having a conversation about green fields. And you know what? You can go in and take a look and see what the utilization on those green fields are today. And maybe work with RESO on how we can campaign and bring attention to those fields and maybe help foster adoption and so on. Very practical use for the dictionary. You've got the fast track taking the certification results. They have the analytics as well. The analytics have got great suggestions in them. And then they're going to be sending things into the work group as well. So the value there, really try to look beyond the interest. Try to look at the utility of it and see what it is you can get out of that. All right. So we've got some very common lookup fields that are being reviewed. Architectural style we'll be talking about today. Okay, so to give you an example, here are local fields that we don't have in the dictionary, right? And we're not just going to throw them into the dictionary, but now we've got some fuel to say, we should really look at these 5. And there are many more. And I just grabbed these because they had a certain interest to them, like coordinates and location. Is that the same thing? Well, we're going to need to figure that out, right? I thought it was interesting you have something like API modification timestamp, and it's like, oh, okay, well, that sounds like a vendor. Well, there are 3 vendors who have that same field. And this isn't even looking for synonyms of things. This is just dead matches quickly pulled off the analytics. And when we start figuring out those synonyms, like if coordinates and location are the same thing, I think we're going to find a lot of ammo for things that already exist out there. All right, so great benefit for adding things to the dictionary that are already out there. But here's the warning. Say we decide coordinates is staying and location is going. Everybody that's got location has got to change it. So when this stuff comes into the work group, you don't want to just say, oh, hey, analytics is taking care of it, we won't bother, because you're not getting your chance to have your voice in to say that, you know what, I prefer location over coordinates, or this is why I think they're different, or whatever the conversation might be. Now, truth be told, I haven't looked at the data in either of these, so I have no idea. But it's very illustrative of the things that we're going to be running into. And I think we might have a decent volume of stuff coming in. This doesn't take away your ability to bring whatever you want into the work group, but I think the work group might get a little bit busier as a result. Every once in a while we cancel meetings because we just don't have that much to do. Maybe we won't have so many in the next year. So I see us really taking advantage of this. And then there's the flip side, right? All those distance to this, that, and the other, right? And nope, Volcano's not in there. But boy, are they not used, right? Now, there's another dimension to this and to the additions is the volume of actual data, because right now I'm not showing that. I wanted to keep it simple for the slides. But we do have not only the dimension of how many organizations, typically MLSs, right? How many providers, like a grid or a trestle, et cetera. But we've also got how much data. And it's just more evidence, Some people might have a field required and others don't. So it's not going to be like these numbers are absolute. But when we see a higher volume of use, it's going to say something. We might have a situation where we've got 100 unique recipients, aka like MLSs, right? But we see that the utilization is near 0. So we might want to go ahead and broadcast out. RESO has the means to even ping those MLSs directly and say, we're going to be talking about this because it's not really being used. Because one of the things about the dictionary compared to some of the other standards that I've seen and discussed over the years is that what I call bloat, kind of creating a place where you just throw everything in there. And one thing that I think is really valuable about the dictionary is our resistance to having duplication in there, right? We're not perfect on that front. Sometimes duplication is needed, but we're going to continue that process to keep it lean, right? Keep it those commonalities, not try to be everything to everyone at all times. So any questions about, and then these will potentially come, you might see on the agenda, distance to deprecation, right? That's a word we use for we're getting rid of it. And again, the only reason to do that is keep it lean, and if you happen to be the one who is using it, you're okay. It'll become a local field, but you don't have to change a thing. Deprecation is actually less painful for the individuals than additions can be, because additions require you to adopt. Deprecation means it's now local. So any questions on that front? All right. Okay, so we're going to get into, and Jason, I don't have my notes at the bottom, but this was one of the ones we were going to see about voting on, right? If I recall. I think so, but I'm going to ask you guys, because this one, it did come in from a work group, came in from Fast Track, I believe. So it has been vetted, hasn't been posted on our site for very long, but I believe in it. I'll give you guys some background. Architectural style has been there from the very early days of the dictionary, and when we all sat around and studied the definition of like colonial and looked at pictures, we realized that on the East Coast and West Coast, might be a very different thing, right? And so we're like, oh, well, let's not get caught up in that. And we held off on it. Well, at this point, in the list that you're going to see, NAR has a really cool page. It's got pictures of these different styles. It's got the names of them. And I think we can do things in the definition to say, you know, your local definition may vary. RESO doesn't actually enforce the written definition, right? So we can solve the problem of people writing all these different words and get us to at least a common language. And just like with any other language that we have in the dictionary, the support of having whatever label you want to convey is there. So if you have a picture of like a colonial and the standard name is colonial and we decide that's what we're going to do at the dictionary, we're going to support this picture. If you call it something else in your neighborhood, you still have the ability to do that with a label. So it's these reasons why I think our previous decision to pass on this one is maybe it's time for us to rethink that. And so without further ado, here they are. This is straight off of NAR's list. We expect we'll be expanding this. This will be open with enumerations, where previously it's just open, so no enumerations. And this is what is proposed to the group that we move forward with. The reason why we've only had it for a week and we're bringing it here is because the dictionary is going to close at the end of the month, and we also had another group mulling this over. So it has had a longer life than the minimum of a week anyway. Any questions on this? What do you all feel about voting this one in?
Hey, Rob.
Hey.
A couple questions from me. One is, could apply to other things, but it applies to this specifically, where the term bungalow means something very different in Canada than it does in the US.
Yes.
And how do we handle those where it's like a bungalow is a ranch in Canada, where it's like directly a contradiction? So even if we used a label, how would that work?
That would work where essentially one disclaimer in the definitions, maybe we put both definitions in there. Matter of fact, you're making exactly the case why we were gun shy from the get-go. If we put this in the dictionary without the picture, I don't think we have rights to put those pictures into the dictionary anyway. We have done that kind of thing in the past. Then I think we can cover it. And I think the main thing is the meaning of bungalow is one thing. Getting everybody just to convey the bungalow, whatever it is, the same way is sort of the purpose of the standard. Now, I'm a big advocate for definitions. It was my whole motivation to get started in this, right? But I feel that we can cover that. And I feel that as we write those definitions, we can expand upon those and have both of those meanings and maybe both of those photos put in there. And there's a notion of geographic data, geographic sensitive data. So in this area, this means this, and in this area, this means that. Definitely concepts that we've been toying with from a standpoint of whether or not to include like a field or enumeration. So if you're out in the middle of the desert and there's no water, not having lakes, I feel really kind of falls in line with those concepts that I think we've come a little ways along and that we've got some facility to do as well. But this one I think is easier. I think it's really just from a definition standpoint. That's my best sales pitch. Yes?
So what you're saying is you can have bungalow listed there, just like in a regular dictionary, you can have bungalow listed there with multiple definitions.
Yes.
For bungalow. That makes perfect sense.
We can write as many definitions as we want. So the question was, can we go ahead and write multiple definitions in the dictionary? Yep, it's a text field and we can add images and do all that. Yes?
Actually, I had a suggestion
Go
about
ahead.
this. I had a suggestion about this. I think for this kind of data, we can easily train an AI model to basically, based on image processing, to determine which style it is, because we cannot expect from real estate agents and brokers to know all these details, and this can be easily done via AI.
Okay, great. So the technology can help make the choices. And if they're geographically aware, it might know the difference between bungalow in the south and bungalow in the north. Another one, split level, just so you guys know, split level is one, is an architectural style, and two, it is part of the levels field. Because you can have a split level when you look outside. It architecturally doesn't look like split level. So that's going to remain in both places. It's a redundancy, but kind of not. Envy.
Is this just exterior, or does this include interior?
These are all exterior.
Okay.
Yep.
And so, so there's no definitions on these?
There is, but they're decidedly NAR definitions. They're very well written, very descriptive, but we do have the case that was mentioned with regards to bungalows.
All right. Yep. Nothing on chateau? Nothing on chateau, like a chateau-style home?
It's extensible, and you can bring chateau forward anytime you want.
Right.
Yes, we have analytics on these and plus ones that are outside of these. I'm going to add those to the post here.
Okay. We've got some analytics. Jason was saying we've got some analytics on these, so what we found out there amongst the data, as well as some others.
Rob, I'm curious. I like the idea of definitions, but also having worked in markets where even in a small market the definitions differ, have you contemplated, like for instance, if I'm doing a data share across a large area, and in one area it might be bungalow, the other area it might be ranch. I mean, now you're trying to accommodate it by definition, but yet the end user at one end or the other might not be consuming it that way.
Absolutely. A risk I think we've got with a number of things in the dictionary. Definitely with what we're doing with the fields and the lookups resource, and how we can add information to it, much like the convention that we've got with language. I think there's going to be room to grow here. Richard.
Yeah, Richard Gibbons. And Rob, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I feel like we're getting a little too caught up on definitions when that's not something RESO checks against.
True.
Eric's not here, so I'm gonna give his example. Because this is an open text field, he had one that was MDN CNTP. You know, and so you have these open things, people are just dumping all kinds of just junk in there. So the point of this is to get everybody to at least use the same words. Now, if you want to run a market analysis and you want to compare how much a bungalow is worth, that's up to you to figure out what it is in Canada versus what it is in Georgia. You know, it's the point of this is more getting everybody to use the same words, and then the definition is on how it's used in the end.
Yeah, I do have to make sure it's super clear here. We're not causing the problem. The problem is already very prevalent, and it's actually much worse because, you know, for this thing that means A here and means B there, there's 5 different ways they're saying it here and 4 different ways they're saying it there. And there's, without having it in the dictionary, we can't then start to leverage the dictionary to clarify these things, whether it's locally based, whether it's difference in a country. Without it there, it's laissez-faire. That rhymed. Dude, we should write a song.
Rob,
Yes.
hello, it's Divina
Hello.
with Bridge. Are you looking for this group then to move forward with a motion to approve this?
Someone would need to make a
I
motion.
would so move.
All right. And I think I got Richard back there with a second. He was the first one there. I heard another one over this way, so you can be the second. We had Divina and then Richard. All right, discussion.
Hey, Rob. So this is a list that would be proposed, or just a movement would be made to come up with the list that would be accepted?
No, this is the list we're voting on. It is extensible, and you can also bring in anything else that you want to add to it at a later date.
Okay. So what is the, like, I know this happens in some other data items, but here you have a lot of crossover between some of these terms. So like every Queen Anne would be a Victorian home. Would it make sense to make that less problematic, at least with what was in the standard, to prevent?
I would direct you over to the NAR site. You can look at the Queen Anne and the Victorian and see how they're different for yourself. And then you might get a different argument when you travel around. So the reason why the group, I assume, put this list forward was that they had looked at it. They definitely had researched the problem that needed to be solved. And they said, look at this resource. This looks good. Let's put it forward as a recommendation for addition to the dictionary. And we can certainly hold back. You know what? If you want to hold back, vote no, and we'll hold back. But it won't make it into 2.0, right? It'll come in later. I don't foresee that we're actually going to narrow these down. I really don't. I don't see us merging Queen Anne and Victorian. But just because we've got examples of it out there, we certainly could, but I don't foresee that. I don't see this list as problematic.
So the only other thing I would add is when we did a lot of work trying to figure out what was an easy way to classify the different styles. And one of the things we ran into with just taking a list like this, we looked at a lot of different lists from different organizations. Within the UAD for the appraiser world, you also have a different set, is I guess a lot of challenges with, you know, the overlap, but also the things that don't fit into any of this, where you can obviously make it extensible, but like, I guess there's a lot of things here that going even through what RESO put together with the percentages that are used that I don't see here, such as something like traditional, which is very vague, but is used in quite an extensive amount of MLSs. So my only thought would be that, you know, this is easy because it's what NAR put together, but there's certainly things that a personal perspective I think could make sense to add based on what we've seen.
And I think the question is that not whether or not we'll address that. The question is, do we want to move forward and then build upon it, or do we want to stop and try to tackle more of it and surface it next year in 2.1 or 3.0. So for the word traditional, we've got 192. Now, was this something you were going to throw into the slide here, or I didn't quite get what you were...
I emailed it to you, I can stick it on the post right now.
Oh, okay. Well, that's different from what we have posted. If somebody wanted to amend traditional based on what he would say, I wouldn't stop you, but starting to get a little bit of an uncomfortable zone of shooting from the hip, even though we got good solid data. Gotta love the analytics. Okay.
Thank you. Divina Bridge, MLS again. I think this is a really good starting place, and I think if we could probably sit here all afternoon and continue to add things. I'd hate to see us do that and waste some time, and not waste time, but we have a lot of other business to do, but I think this is a good starting point for us right now. And as we continue to work on this in 2024, I'm sure we're going to be able to add things, maneuver things around or whatever. And, but I think if this is what NAR is giving us right now, that's a good starting point, because our members are the ones that are out there, and our brokers are the ones that are out there, and they help build this. So I would move in favor of just continuing with the list that we have and start here. And I'm just really interested in living in a stick house someday. So thank you very much.
Great. And this is the motion we have on the floor. John.
I think they were.
This isn't about the song idea.
No, thank you. John Bro, statewide MLS. So normally I'm guns a-blazing, let's move forward. But I can sense, this is the first time most of the people in this room are seeing this. We haven't taken this list and mashed it up against the data that we currently are seeing yet, right, to see what's missing. I don't know that we've seen that. I know we're in the process. That was something in the fast track group when we talked about it. It was like, okay, this is a great list, but we're sort of missing a piece of the puzzle. How does this compare to what else is in there? I know we've got a lot of repetition in that, but what might be missing? I know in my market, we have raised ranch, and split level, and my ever favorite other, because I think other belongs on the list, but don't kill me. We've been living with it for this long. Normally I'm like I said, I'm guns blazing, let's just do it, but I don't see a big problem in waiting to not voting today, making sure everyone's comfortable, and then just revisiting at a later meeting.
Make sure you vote no.
I will.
All right.
Quick question.
Yes.
Is there analysis on the usage for those fields against the existing data? I'm saying because I did run a very similar project, and there is stuff that I see here that I think it's not that common. So my first concern is is there stuff that should not be there?
I believe we have that work done, and we had enough commonality across the board to justify inclusion in the dictionary.
But not exclusion? How often on the total set of values in a lookup is Second Empire present, or Queen Anne?
I don't have the numbers in front of me. I'm sorry, I don't. I don't know. Jason might have just sent that over to me. If there's, I don't know, Jason, if you've got any particular numbers you can answer to.
Definitely some that are low used.
Yeah, that's why, because if you start from somewhere and you want to add stuff to it, I will make sure that what you add now is the very bare-bone version and not something that is barely used. That's it.
Yeah. Do we have any zeros? There's no, all of them are being used.
Yeah, but if it's used in 0 to 2%, right? And then there is another field that is using 7.
Well, either which way I'm fine with. If you feel you want to get this in to get started and we'll build upon it, you would vote yes. If you want to wait and look at it a bit further, that's fine too. You would vote no.
Yeah, thank you.
Certainly. Matt.
I just wanted to bring up the architectural design category type in MISMO. Again, there are other standards out there. It may be worth, and already I can see there's differences between the lists. So it may be worth just a little bit
back
of just a little research into all the other standards, especially internationally, to get it right the first time.
We can definitely do that.
Rob?
Oh,
Rob, I got to get close on that. Kyle Murphy, Canopy MLS. I actually want to slow walk this one too, so I'm going to vote against it.
Okay.
I don't know that this is really solving any kind of problem to just put these terms in here and say that you have to spell them this way. Because I mean, unless you're worried that like somebody is going to abbreviate something or you're going to call it neoclassic instead of neoclassical, if the terms might not even have the same meaning from one end of a market to another,
Correct.
just putting the terms in there it's not helping an MLS get the data better. It's not helping a website get the data better. It's not, it's not helping a consumer understand what they're getting. All it's doing is just saying, hey, if you use this term, spell it this way, which is something that an MLS could already do, which is like a little bit of data validation internally without there needing to be a standard, because the standard is only a spell check. So it's not,
I wasn't in the conversations with the work group, but to me, there is a pain point, and it's very clear. Neoclassical. Neoclassical, as you see it, neo-classical, boom, problem. And there's this particular field, Jason, I don't know if you have the number handy, it was a really large number of architectural styles. And if you took a look at them, you saw a lot of them were like neoclassical, just, hyphenated, whatever it is, to where we don't have matching strings. Yeah, there's 1,500 of them. And so these are all used. These come from, a post that's very well written, has photographs and all that. So what's behind that? There you go. And again, if you feel that stepping back, like say you want to look at MISMO, if appraisal is important and the attachment to lending with regards to these, then we can certainly do that. Okay, next.
So if we go down this road, I'm not against it, but I know our MLS probably wouldn't use it, and the reason is it's hard to, these aren't really integrity items. The enforcement of this, I just can't enforce it. If somebody says, well, it's Craftsman, and somebody else says, no, it's Prairie because it's on a prairie, I have no idea what the, so I'm thinking maybe there should be a categorization in the data dictionaries talking about descriptive fields versus integrity-based fields, because I wouldn't be able to enforce these.
And you wouldn't have to, again. You could roll this field out with just Art Deco and you'd be compliant. You could not have this field at all and you'd be compliant. But if you put Art-Deco in there, then you're in violation. That's doing it the dictionary way if you in the dictionary are doing it. Any other discussion? Joseph.
Hi, Joe, Sergi, MLS Grid. The fast track work subgroup elevated this because part of the issue we've been seeing is that, and to Kyle's point and some others, spelling errors and architectural style, it's obviously open to interpretation regionally across countries. But without any sort of standard to start with, then neo-classical and neoclassical is not standard. And as a standards organization, while you want to open this with enumerations and allow it to be extensible, you have to have a firm footing and a place to start from. That's not to say that this is going to magically fix the 1,500 different architectural styles RESO sees today, but it's a marathon, not a sprint. And if you don't start somewhere, whether it's just something as small as architectural style today, then you can't grow and evolve the standard eventually over time and get to a point where it is cleaned up and the data is consistent. The data dictionary is a living, breathing document. It's going to evolve like our language. It's going to grow over time, but we have to start agreeing that there's common terms and common spellings and common things to start that process if we're going to ever evolve and become a fully fledged out data dictionary 8.0, 9.0, et cetera.
Yeah,
and when we get to 10, can we use an X?
I think Joe covered a lot of the points, and it is basically that, and along with, we talked in transport, there's 1,500 variations to this when we scan the data. That's insanity for data consumers, right? I'm chair of the data consumer group, the pain points, and that is certainly something that causes grief. And so We do have fast tracks, so it can evolve. But I do think some of the points that were made, I know Matt made a point about MISMO and taking a close look at that, probably does make a lot of sense. I'm fine with deferring it a little bit, but at some point we do have to agree on it, or just move forward. I don't know that we'll ever all agree on it, but at some point we do have to move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. No one else on the mics? All right. If you vote in favor, this will be added to architectural style that currently has no enumerations. It will remain extensible, so you can add things to it. If there's things in here like shed that are not appropriate in your neighborhood, leave them out. The omissibility of the dictionary remains as well. And if you think that, hey, some of these might be bad, we need to stop, then you should vote no. If you want to move forward, get us going with this and then work on it after that, you would vote yes. All right, any questions? All right, let's go ahead and move to taking a vote. So we'll start with the yeses. If you could raise your hands. I think we're going to want to count here. Okay. I got a rough number. All right, go ahead and, oh, sorry, were you done? I definitely wanted to get your, okay. Wanted to have redundancy here, but okay, we'll go ahead and lower, and then those against, please raise your hand. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 14, 15, 16. Okay, well, we've got definitely more than double in favor. I put it around like 16, somewhere less than 20 against, and somewhere around 50 in favor. Okay, so we're going forward. All right, we won't be voting on this. This is a work in progress. But definitely one worth paying attention to. It's got some impact to it that the work group has already voted on. Is that we have a current field called image of. It's a single select. And we're going in the direction of we're going to add an image contains that is going to be a separate independent list. So image of, image contains won't be the same list. There are certain things that are being proposed that are going to be deprecated out of image of and moved into image contains. And then there's going to be a bunch of additions into image contains. So, and sorry if I didn't mention this to begin with, this is in your media table. So each photo, you've got a pick list. Utilization of this isn't super high, but it's getting more and more popular all the time, especially when you've got products like RESB and so on, tagging photos. So this second field is multi-select. So now you've got a field that says, this is an image of the living room, and the image contains this thing, that thing, and the other thing. Right now we're using existing feature enumerations to help drive this list, but your participation is important as well. And want to see if there's any questions about how to participate in this. We've got a post up for it. You can definitely grab your lists if you have them and compare. I think it would be easy for you to evaluate. If I've got the RESO list exactly as it is today for image of, I got change coming, and I need to get ready for it. Quick sanity check for you to get ahead of this. So any questions about the use of this or the direction that we voted or next steps?
I got a question.
Yes.
Adam from Georgia MLS. So the image contains pick list. Is it just going to be a long list of enumerations that covers everything from refrigerator to trampoline to?
We're trying to control ourselves.
Okay.
It is, it's, you know, it's like going to a swap meet that's on a 100-acre lot. You know, you can buy an awful lot of stuff. So we're, I think, being a little bit pragmatic. I'd invite you to come in and share your thoughts on the scope of this. We're definitely not just mechanically taking every feature and throwing it in there. And we have input from the perspective of, I have an MLS and I'm going to give this list to my members and I don't want that list to be too long. And we also have the input from RESB and, you know, here's the things we're identifying and how do we line up with it. So I think we've got healthy perspectives, but we definitely need more involved at the work group level.
Thank you.
Bill.
Does this handle virtually staged photos?
Right now, the primary target is going to be with respect to a person looking at the photo and secondarily a system looking at the photo, right? So if that photo is staged with these things, then that person might pick one of those things.
So we don't have a field currently for images for virtually staged, do we?
We've got a way of identifying that it's been enhanced. Yep. So any other questions with this one? This one here is the future. And just so you know, from a standpoint of computer vision and all that, there's going to be some ongoing discussions on a new architecture that's not just simply a pick list for a human, but how are we going to wrangle all of this, right? How much depth do we need? You know, are we going to have things where we have features with automatic measurements? So refrigerator and here's the size. There's a future in this as well, discussion-wise. But right now, it's just the pick list that a person would utilize. All right. There is the post there, the working proposal. I invite you to take a look at that as well. Okay, so we do have this one up for vote. It has been posted up for a while. We had a business case put together on this. I don't know if Cameron's here. He had worked on that. I think some really good work has gone into this, and it's really standardizing how you convey that I've got IoT devices that are going with the home and the sale. And this is what the group came up with. So I'll let you look at that if you didn't have a chance to review it online. It has been up for a while, though. So we're definitely going to move for a vote on this one. And before we...
I'll make a motion we approve the list.
Okay, we got a motion from John there. Do we have a second? I already got Dan. All right. Discussion.
Gail Ludeman, MRED. Just a quick question regarding the, say, for example, the smart appliances. Say you don't have a field for smart appliances, but in your existing appliances field, you have smart refrigerator.
Right.
How would the adoption of this standard affect that?
It wouldn't. It is a redundancy, and we may choose to deprecate one. Right now, we don't have any deprecation proposed. There's a little bit of overlap. I think from a standpoint of completeness, this is much more complete than the random appliances and other odds and ends that we have. I mean, they're not entirely random, and they was based on systems, but.
Thank you.
So you would be able to have both because they both exist in the dictionary. You could have one or the other or both.
Thank you.
Sorry, Jason?
Who was the second?
Oh, Dan.
Is HomeKit referring to Apple HomeKit in this case? And should branded IoT devices be included in the list?
Anybody know?
I can't think of what else it would mean.
I think the brand word is one word.
Yeah, it would be one word, but seems strange to.
So the question is with regards to branding.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess one is to determine if HomeKit in this case is Apple HomeKit, because it's also spelled a little differently.
I do
And
not
two,
know.
should we include branded, proprietary?
I don't believe we have Cameron here. Anybody that had worked on this group familiar with HomeKit? I am not.
I'm assuming that's what was intended there, is that it be HomeKit, and it shouldn't have a space in it. So
Right.
if it is a branded version, that's all.
Okay, normally maker of the motion type of thing, although this came out of a work group, but if the group feels that either eliminating it from the list because it's branded, a brand, or we should remove the space.
As the maker of the motion, I guess I'll amend my motion to say we strike it. We can always add it later, but we'll just strike it.
Absolutely. Okay,
I have,
so
I have a suggestion in terms of branding. Maybe we only include standards like Thread, Z-Wave, Zigbee, that kind of stuff. But closed systems that aren't extensible, HomeKit, Samsung, whatever it's called, would not be included.
typically,
Yeah.
yeah. We don't have a super strict on that, I think, but typically we avoid branding. But right now, Maker and Second have struck HomeKit, so that's out. The list is extensible, so if you want to put HomeKit in your system, knock yourself out. Yes?
I'm kind of new to this
Oh, sorry.
group. How do you arrive at the pluralizations of these things? Like doorbell, there's only one. Toilet, there's only one. Lights, there's multiple. Locks, there's parentheses S.
I got no answer for you. This would be one of those where if you want to rethink the list, I think what we would do is push it back to the work group so it would get voted down because we already have a motion. You'd vote it down. We'd give suggestions, push it back to the group for changes on those suggestions. I definitely don't have an argument against what you're saying. Okay.
Yes.
There we go.
Cindy Miller, Netris. Okay. It's coming apart. Kind of along that same line, because you have smart appliances and you have all those smart fixtures, but then you've got disclosures and ownership and included. So would we have to do a multi-select for each one of those appliances and each one of those fixtures?
Yes.
Because different stuff can apply to different
because
stuff.
the other thing that was entertained and hasn't been brought forward would be to create a subtable and dimension on it. I put that in the comment on the original post. There was no feedback along those lines, so it's just remaining as requested by the group.
I do not want to change the list. Put this on for the future. Irrigation systems.
Okay. I got a Racchio, and I love that thing. Yes?
Actually, I wanted to go back to the previous slide about image contains of, because I think that it's kind of problematic, possibly creating a lot of disputes, because we know that not only some pictures are virtually staged, but a lot of them are physically staged. And if PropTech companies, they want to use AI to identify objects, we don't know which objects belong really to the property or as a part of the staging. So,
Very important aspect. I think that whole conversation is going to be one to bring to the group. There was no decision there. And we do have a motion on the floor. The maker just clarified that. And I have to support him. And it's not because we're both bass players. No favoritism. Okay, do I have somebody else up? All right, here we go.
Wait, yeah, I've got one question that I was actually not going to make until, I don't know where she went. Whoever just made it, did she talk about making this a subtable? Like to do it the other way?
Yeah.
what would it take to go from just this is fields to this is a subtable? Like, does that need to be a motion now or a vote against, or like, would that just be like if 5 years from now you're realizing that everybody's checking leased and owned in everything because they're leasing one and owning another, then it's revisited?
I wouldn't want to shoot from the hip and just amend it and call it a subtable, because now we're definitely saying, okay, we're going to have many iterations of this instead of just everything being multi-select. It's now going to be a case where we're going to try to be much more exacting, so let's get that posted up. I'd say a good start is if this gets voted down, or if it gets voted up, go back to that post and respond to my mention of that.
Yeah, because I did not see that on your mention, but we have a problem not
That's
just
all
with
right.
this stuff, but with like fuel sources and things like that are confused over this uses this, and it's, so yeah, this is a constant issue.
Yeah,
So.
understand. Mike?
Yeah, I'd vote or urge people to vote against this particular proposal for the reason that the gentleman said about pluralization. But I want to say it just more generally because I think this also applies to the image contains field. That we need to take time, and I think there's some of this already that's been done, but creating some basic rules of the road, if you will, for creating these enumerations, just like this there should be a pattern that we're following consistently on all the fields to say, are we going to pluralize them or are we not? How are we going to handle various things? There's just there's definitely patterns that we can follow. And when you start to look at this field like image contains, with this incredibly long list that's almost entirely duplicative of other fields, we're just exacerbating this problem. And we now know that with the ratification yesterday of DD 2.0, everybody's got a lot of work to do, and they're having to do it against things that are inconsistent. It's not to disparage any of the work that's been done with the DD. I mean, we've participated in that. Everybody here in this room has participated. It's really good work. But there's also just inconsistencies, and I think we need to take that time. Fast track is a good part of that, but we need to ramp that up. And before we're compounding it by adding more and more of this stuff with these inconsistencies that we have to map to and work with and deal with, I think we should pause and develop those patterns of practice and correct the things that we know are problematic now in the list rather than creating more lists.
And you're going to come across a slide that as a good example of exactly what Mike's talking about. So again, if you want to hold back on this and rework it, it won't make 2.0, but you would vote it down, and then we'd send it back to the subgroup with recommendations, which I think we've probably got pretty well captured, but I think getting everybody to come to that post. Tell you what, if you vote no, please also commit to going to the post and including why. That will really help the group out a lot. Nothing worse than sending it back without any recommendations. All right. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and move forward with a vote. I'm going to jump down here so I can see better. And Jason, I'm going to wait and check, make sure you've done your count as well before asking everybody to pull their hands down. All right, so if you could go ahead and raise your hands if you're in favor of moving forward as listed. We got 1, 2, 3. Oh, this is going to be easy. 4, 5. Okay, all those against? Easy loser. Is that the right way of saying that? All right. Okay, so those of you who've raised your hands, we've captured that moment with AI, and who you are is being added into the dictionary, waiting for your response. Anybody who doesn't respond will have a visit. I'm just kidding. Please do go to that post and chime in. Okay, moving on. Accessory dwelling units. Not going to vote on this one, but it's an important one. Listened to a conversation recently talking about how tiny homes are now coming into play in this, right? One of my big battles is the abuse of the word ADU. everything is not an ADU. ADUs have some sort of supporting document. They have a litmus test that's run against them, and not everything that passes a litmus test might be an ADU. So there's still a place for granny flat, there's still a place for guest house, there's still a place for maybe a tiny home, if that's what you want to call the thing in your backyard, right? But ADUs, like the one that I've heard is the certificate of occupancy is one way it's communicated, that you actually have an ADU, and there are others. But this, I think the term ADU is really not the most valuable part of it, is that this is a substructure where you would describe, you know, beds, baths, kitchen, all those things that have to be in an ADU. And right now it's also looking at whether or not it's an ADU as like a flag, right, in there. So take a look at this. Hugely important as far as how fast this is moving forward in the world. In this state, they really lowered the requirements drastically to help foster getting additional homes. So even though the guest house isn't an ADU, a lot more guest houses are ADUs now, right? So any question on this discussion? And I've gotten some feedback as well from Celeste at Casita Coalition. If you know any other organizations that are helping push ADUs forward, we'd love to give their input as well. All right, moving right along. Yeah, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Hi, my name's Tim. With the FHA changes to ADUs, is there anything that triggers like what we might want to do with RESO or the guides that we have with like new legislation or things coming? Or, yeah.
I would hope that what we're going to do is whatever your local, because this varies state to state, whatever your local state does will work. So, for example, we're not going to say you have to have a business rule where you start with the word ADU and then collect, you know, the dimensions of the place. You're going to collect the dimensions of the place and you're going to say whether or not you have an ADU on it. So it'd be flexible. Hopefully that answers your question.
I guess more just as things change outside of us. Like I think this discussion happened before the FHA changes or were announced last week or in the past couple weeks, right? Like what do we do when we see those changes happening externally to review things that we've implemented?
It's going to be very important for the practitioner who's flicking ADU yes on, I think. So local training, awareness, all those kind of things. And then there's history of listings. So ADU got left off and now it qualifies as an ADU, but that listing is sold. It's history. So I think you're going to have that dynamic to contend with. And I think mostly it's informational.
Okay, no, great, thank you.
Okay. All right. All right, internet tracking field name changes. So from a utilization standpoint, we're looking pretty good to go ahead and make these changes. These came from the work group, and it is exactly what it is. We're gonna change the existing names from the first column to the second column. Any questions? Can I get a motion? Got John, second? Second. Who is that? Trey. Trey. Discussion. All those in favor, raise your hand. Okay, you can lower your hands. All those against, raise your hand. We got one against. All right. And for he who voted against, love to have that discussion, hook you up with Chris and find out what concerns you have. All right. So motion passes. All right, we got another. These are addition of a timestamp. I give you the example of one that we have in there. So this is out on the property record. This is an MLS thing. And having a timestamp saying that we've had photos change, that we've had this change, that change is got precedence in it, but we didn't have it for open house. So the request is to make this straight addition. The characteristics of the field would be exactly the same as photo change timestamp. I get a motion.
So moved. I'll second.
All right, John and Dan. I swear these guys aren't on the payroll.
I'm just doing it to get it out there so we can vote.
Yep, okay, discussion. Impact, if you got open house timestamp, you're gonna have to change the name of your field.
Hey, Rob.
Yes.
Hey, my name's Eric. So in general, I'm against denormalizing or reversing our normalization of our data. I'd rather get rid of photos change timestamp than take it as an example, because like we could do it for other things. List agent change timestamp, not very valuable, but you can make the same argument.
We got a lot of flat stuff in the dictionary. If you would like to chair a subgroup on that, and I'm not joking, if you want to champion that, I'd be more than happy to help queue you up and we can look at it from that standpoint. But it's this, voting this down would be kind of like, I don't know what it'd be like, futile. We need to go after that head on. Marcus.
It's just the naming of it. Like you've got open house modification timestamp, and the one you're basing it on is photos change timestamp. Like, should it be change or modification? And I'm sure there's other fields that are similar. So like just, again, coming back to like a standards definition for if we're building these kinds of fields, this is our naming convention.
Modification is more to the standard.
Yeah.
Change wasn't, but where were you when we needed you, Mark?
Yes. Kyle Murphy with Canopy MLS again. So yeah, I was looking because there's already like modification timestamp and all that in there. I just, photos change timestamp was the easiest analog. So even though the naming doesn't match one-to-one, we went with the open house modification timestamp just to follow along. But yeah, speaking to the flattened data, to again, there's too many faces, I don't know where he sat down. We just, I mean, like literally weekly, just over and over and over, every Thursday and Friday, we get contacts from people that said, I canceled an open house, I changed the time of an open house, I did something to an open house, and every data consumer in the world still has the old data on it for whatever reason. And it's because there's no indicator in that property resource that says the open house changed. So no, and like, if there's nothing that tells you it changed, you're not gonna go in that room and see if anything changed. So there's just, you need to have something there to say, go look over here too, so that you've got current and correct data. So I mean, we get complaints of people like peeking in windows and stuff on a Saturday morning because an open house got canceled, but they didn't know about it, and they think, oh, this is weird. I'll just look in a bedroom window and see what's going on. So yeah, we're just looking for something so that they can stop calling us and we can just get the data to flow normally, so.
Check. Yeah.
I concur with that. We're in the process of building our open house. I don't even know what we call it, Kathleen. What do we call it? Like off-market? Off-market thing. So open houses disappear because people cancel them.
The biggest problem is they don't all tell us that they're deleted.
Yeah, we don't get like an open house deleted type thing, right? I think this would help so we can go at least go check or know to go check. So we have to create this process where we like go find all the open houses and figure out which one should be taken off the market. It's a pain in the ass, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you want to bring any other ideas with respect to that forward, we'd be happy to have it. Since we're getting short on time, I'm going to cut off any kind of comments. Did John and Dan make a motion on this one yet? Okay, all right, sorry. All right, so for a vote, all those in favor of the addition of open house modification timestamp, please raise your hand. All right, you can lower them. And all those against? We got one. We got that guy. Are you the one that always votes no on our stuff? I really wanted to meet you. Yeah. Yeah, we got it, definitely. Modification is consistent, change is the one that's not. So if you want, we can tackle the one that says the word change. All right, so motion passes. I'm sorry to rush you, but we're running out of time. I want to try to get in Pickleball Court. What a great way to end. We're not going to be able to cover everything today. I apologize, everybody, but it's important for us to have these discussions. So, pickleball part, we're not at discussion yet, sorry, and I've got 10 seconds left. Do I have a motion for this? Okay, so we got Divina, and who was the second? Who was the second? Okay. You got it? All right. All right, discussion.
All right. Kyle Murphy over Canopy MLS again. We put way too many hours of discussion into whether or not to add pickleball court to our data, because it was a question of, is this a trend or a fad or something that's here to stay? Because if it's only going to be around, advertised in the association amenity for 3 years, do we really want to have this piece of like a piece of legacy data for 30 years just stuck there? And we would see places where it wasn't just like a converted tennis court, it was a converted basketball court, or they just repainted the parking lot and you could just put temporary stands up in there. So these were like multi-use places, it wasn't dedicated use. So where we ended up was going with 2 additions, game court and sport court, with colloquial definitions, not our official ones, of it's a game court if you take a break and you can go have a beer. It's a sport court if you take a break and you need Gatorade.
In summary, because we're out of time,
yeah, so
you're a vote against.
Because it's too fad-ish, trend-ish kind of for addition.
All right, so that was against. Do we have any other comments for this one? I will note that for consistency's sake, the way things are described in community features, it's not pickleball court, it's just pickleball. All right. Okay. And we'll go ahead and move to a vote. All those in favor? All you pickleball fans? Okay, go ahead and lower them. And those against? The ayes have it. So we're going to be coming back with this restrictive covenant at the next meeting, right? And here's a recap of what's in 2.0. There is complete details available. You can pull down the entire sheet off the Wiki. Information, naming conventions, Mike's point, plurals versus singulars. These are, the very top 3 are changes that are being made because they haven't been finalized. And so from a technical standpoint, these are the changes that are being made. These are 2.0 items, so this is being done before ratification and finalization. Does anybody have any concerns? Okay. We're going to have these coming up in the next version. These bottom ones, we're not voting on now because they're already part of 1.7. So we need to take these through the process. All right. And moving along, just a quick comment. Jason is doing fantastic work. The vision here is to get the dictionary to where it's running more as a machine at the end of the day, right? And that we rely on RESO as an organization to support things such as subgroups, individual requests, and so on. So you can still come in and say, hey, I want this thing, and it goes through the process. But subgroups, Jason, there's a lot less task on me, and we've got somebody actually getting paid to do it, which is awesome, because doing it for free sucks. But it's not that bad. But just want to let you know this is where we're headed with it. We're going to get these policies and procedures posted out, and I'm thinking a knowledge base right now. It's just in a shared work document. Not going to have time to go through all the subgroups, but they are working and moving forward. I want to say thank you to everybody that's part of those. If you have something that you're passionate about, please come forward. We will put the structure together. You'll get the support of myself and RESO, and we can take whatever idea, whatever thing you want, and bring it forward and champion it for you. All right, so rental was already mentioned today. Commercial was mentioned today. It's definitely moving forward. Just so you know, this is the fast track group, and we're going to start seeing more and more out of them. right? Because when they want the dictionary changed, they're going to send it up to us, all right? And then also we've got building. That's currently also a work in progress. If you have any notion of a campus, a building, a floor, right, or a level, and a unit, and you have that dimension, please come forward and meet with us. We're working on just building right now, but I see this expanding. And thank you very much.